Welcome. I want to immediately start this video by saying all footage that you see is by GamesRadar and their pre-alpha gameplay, which you can view without my commentary on their YouTube channel. I'll have it linked below. Please do check it out and leave a like because I am just completely stealing it, to be entirely honest. I'm going to also quickly say I haven't played Marathon yet. However, I have spent multiple hours watching streams and getting an idea of the game. Obviously, I don't know how it's going to feel when I eventually play it, but I'm going off of what I've seen. This is going to be a pros and cons video. And with that, I'm also going to say that this is a focus more on the cons of the game, since I want to use it as a comparison point in the future, like on release, on subsequent seasons, and eventually years into its life. I am going to start with the pros, and I'm going to try and get through these kind of quickly, since I do mainly want to talk about the cons and what I want to see come to the game in the future. 2, absolutely, no surprise, the gunplay in Marathon looks absolutely amazing. It's classic Bungie, just like I thought it would be, and guns have impacts, their animations are simply beautiful, and I look forward to getting my hands on them. With a few outliers, guns seem to be very well balanced. Most, if not all, gunfights can nearly be won or lost with near enough every single gun in the game. With those few outliers being the ones that are either too strong or too weak, you can still fight with one or the other and win gunfights. PvE seems pretty ruthless. People have been saying that the AI are not to be messed with, and I've seen it. Countless clips of people getting knocked down or even fully killed by AIs have been surfacing, and I'm sure it will happen to both you and I within the time of this game's lifetime. The UI, the lobby menu, spectating, and all that good stuff fits in perfectly to the aesthetic and the world around it. The runners seem very well made, as much as they don't want to say it's definitely a hero shooter. However, most gunfights aren't controlled by abilities and more gunplay and skill. Looting looks fun and, more importantly, rewarding when you finally get that item that you've been hunting. Contracts are pretty interesting, especially when you're focused onto a certain company. Slower movement means gunfights are actually who is more accurate and not who can move quicker, especially when you're keyboard and mouse versus controller. PC aim assist will be a controversial one. However, Halo Infinite has it and it's tuned pretty well. It just needs some more work, but I'm sure that will happen before launch, and I'm sure it will be great. Well, you know what I mean. Company skill trees are rewarding, and not only that, there's a ton of lore within leveling them up, what keeps you engaged, especially with the companies you like. I've seen a lot of specifically New Caloric and Cyber Acme. I haven't seen much of Traxxas, however, both New Caloric and Cyber Acme have me interested, and they're not even the ones that I'm going to be using mainly. When the game finally comes out, I'm probably going to focus down into Maida and Sekiguchi. Maida mainly because they have such a important role into the game's past, and I want to know what happens next with Maida and why they're even on Tau City. Next is the perimeter map is a genuine upgrade compared to Dire Marsh. Everything I've seen about perimeter in these streams, whether it be from running contracts to PvE to general exploration, does genuinely seem like it's a greater map. The game's music is incredible. Everything almost sounds like ominous and tense, specifically with the music. The rest of the in-game sounds are genuinely they're like gun sound heavy, like the ones that are going to sound heavy sound hefty. Shields, when they break or get shot, they sound good. Pretty much everything that you want in a game like this to sound well sounds very nicely. And lastly but not least, we got glitch feet. Going into the cons, I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about these, as I already said earlier I will. The first one that I'm going to just immediately say, and it's the one that I am by far it's probably in my top 3 of the things that I really dislike, is that the fact there's no bodies. It's just bags upon death. That's quite boring, especially when every trailer, teaser, and even the, I guess animation, shows bodies. Since these aren't humans either, they're air quote shells, I see even less reason that they can't have them. Next is the poor economy. Why is a sponsored loadout what gives you a gun, ammo, and meds the same price as 2 basic medkits? player economy would make a lot more sense. However, I'm aware that they might not want to do it, especially since they have things like sponsored loadouts. However, it wouldn't be the end of the world if it did happen, and I'm kind of on the idea of maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. Insanely long load times. Now, I'm pretty sure this is probably just going to be a thing that is going to be a part of the alpha, and maybe even the betas when they come around. However, I've seen loading screens that are like 40 seconds, 2 minutes, and sometimes even longer than that. I think Beerkey had one at one point that was literally like 5 minutes, to the point where she eventually got up and went to go do something else, and then when she came back, they like just loaded in time. But still, insanely long load times. I'm not a fan of the single exfil point per team, especially since individual teams have their own unique exfil spot. It just means that when you're exfilling, the only real threat that you're going to face is, unless somebody is already in that area where your exfil is going to be AI. Whereas in game modes like DMZ, what is even on a larger map, or even Tarkov, is shared exfil. So, you know, you can go to, and just have them open all the time as well. Like, you can go to any single exfil point on the entire map, and whether it be somebody's already there, or maybe you wait for them to exfil or whatever, there's actual it's almost intense. Whereas compared to how Marathon is with individual exfil points, and the one at the end that's like the universal one, there's almost like no threat. Everything I've seen so far is like, I haven't seen somebody, like one person die or get into like a serious gunfight with other people during an exfil. Speaking of player encounters, it seems they either happen instantly or literally never. I've seen some runs that literally end almost instantly, like within the first couple of minutes, because of PvP, and other exfil or other runs that would just never end because these people would just be doing their AI or whatever, and they would literally never encounter another player. And obviously I'm aware that that is a aspect of hero shooters, not hero shooters, extraction shooters rather. However, it almost feels weird to not have player engagements. Next is the entire heat system. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know what they could do here. Like, the only thing I can really think of is probably keep it for, like, sliding and, like, with glitch double jumping and maybe when you're doing your, like, tactical sprint on Locust and things like that, keep it for that. But forcing you to stop sprinting is so dumb, as seemingly for no reason, especially when some of your objectives and the places that you need to go to can be literally hundreds of meters away. Be like maxing out your heat bar in like, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 seconds while just trying to run somewhere is so like poor. And as I said, if you keep it for something like sliding, it's not like you're ever going to really like that keeps gunfights slow, because you can't just slide away from it or slide into gunfights. If their objective is to keep slower gunfights where precision is key, I don't see how sprinting, improving, or gaining heat is exactly a thing for that, especially when the heat system is already so just like dumb, to be honest. Exterior environment looks nowhere near good as interior. It's almost like a night and day difference. I'm aware it's an alpha and this is probably going to change, and it specifically looks worse on Dire Marsh. A lot of areas in Perimeter do look pretty good outside, however, you can still tell the difference. Not spawning with abilities off cooldown almost just feels weird. The ultimates, I guess, I guess that's what you can call them. I understand, because having, like, I can understand that's fine, like, that makes sense. But having something, what some characters, like Void has just a smoke, and Glitch just has, like, essentially, that's her, like, hand blast thing was essentially a grenade. Both of them being on, like, a minute-long cooldown off the start of the game just doesn't really feel good, especially because I know I'm going to end up playing Glitch, and I know that I'm probably going to go into a lot of my runs already with smoke grenades, and it's like, I could run like a frag or something instead, but then why would I want to use a frag grenade when one of my abilities is a frag grenade? It's even more confusing though for like Void, because as I said, like, I know I'm going to run smoke, so why would I ever have the incentive to run Void? Because it's like, I can either get a smoke on a 70-second cooldown, or I can get it instantly and have it ready the second I load in case we get into one of those early game gunfights. it's not a system that makes sense to me. I'm just not a fan of it. And lastly, and probably one of the biggest ones, is no VoIP / proximity chat in an extraction shooter is a very, very, very weird choice. It's almost like if a hero shooter didn't have a ranked mode or a battle royale that was drop in. It just feels like it was just an unnecessary thing to not have there, but it isn't there for some unknown reason, other than they want to keep the game like non-toxic. However, I feel like majority of the time extraction shooters aren't that toxic because, surprise, surprise, people want to keep their loot, and if they can avoid gunfights, then you're probably going to, unless you want to kill somebody and you're specifically out for blood. But even then, like, the chances of you hearing somebody and you're talking to someone in game and being like, yo, I look, man, I just completed my last thing for my contract, I haven't got much, I'm just gonna exfil, we calm, cool. However, since there's no proximity chat, moments like that can't happen. Moments like, a lot of what I'd see in DMZ would be somebody would get into a gunfight, and before anything would happen, they'd shout friendly, 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 and then before you know it, you have 6 people from 2 different teams exfilling together. And like that type of stuff wouldn't happen, it can't happen in Marathon. And that links back to the other exfil complaint I had, is, you know, not having multiple universal exfils and just having one per team almost, as I already said, doesn't really give a lot of point to PvP. And on top of that, it's without proximity chat, it's just, it almost takes away fighting players from AI. Like, the thing that makes fighting players versus AI in a lot of extraction shooters is the fact that you can talk to the people you're shooting. Otherwise, it's just going to feel like you're fighting an AI that's better. Like, there's no soul to them, almost. Anyway, going on to my concerns and hopes for the future, I'm going to immediately back up the thing I was just saying about proximity chat by saying I would love to see a proximity chat feature added to this game. It is almost essential. I'm aware that they're, like, looking into it. However, the fact that it hasn't even released yet or hasn't even been confirmed is kind of fucking crazy to me. The next is, with there being a mandatory knife in your inventory every run, I would like to see bundles that are pretty much already coming, as we know with shells and skins, with knife skins. Maybe similar to Valorant's more so than CS, as Valorant knife skins are a bit more sci-fi-esque anyway. It would be really, really cool to have something akin to an RGX Karambit in Marathon. That is hopefully without the Valorant pricing, though, because if you know Valorant's pricing, it will make you go insane. Speaking of cosmetics and bundles, I'm hoping weapon skins stick to the aesthetic and run as shells that you can tell who it is by the silhouette. Many games have skins that lose the ease of telling, especially if you're not paying attention to the store and what's new. What I mean by that, because I wrote that quite weird in my faux script, I'm going to call it, is a lot of games have skins. Obviously, it's pretty much mandatory, and especially games like this that have abilities, it is almost essential to be able to know who you're looking at. It's why games like Valorant straight up don't have character skins, because maybe one day they would release a skin that makes Clove look like Reyna or Viper look like Sage, and before you know it, you're thinking, that's a Sage over there, I'm gonna headshot them. So they can't res their teammates, and then they've gone ahead and thrown a poison thing at you, and now you're just taking damage. You're like, well, what the fuck? I thought it was a Sage. I hope the skins stick to the aesthetic and everything, and going off of what we've seen in the animation, I'm hoping that that's the case with the glitch skins, and if all of those, what we saw in that, come to the game as just glitch skins, you can tell it's glitch, and I'm hoping that is the situation that they stick with. Next on the list is more guns. I'm aware that this isn't the whole list, but it really does feel like everybody is running the same 3 or 4 guns. It's either like the Overrun AR, the Twin Tap, the Longshot HBR, or the Bully SMG. Everything else is either entirely forgotten about, even if they're still strong, or people just don't want to use them because things like the Twin Tap is good across the board. You can use it at short-range combat, mid-range combat, and long-range combat, and still like pretty much win most of your gunfights with ease. But that is pretty much all I can think of right now. I appreciate you watching this, especially if you watched all the way through. I know this has been kind of like, I'm talking very quickly. I'm very passionate about this game. I'm very excited for its future. The gameplay looks absolutely phenomenal, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. It sucks so much that this was a NA only test, but there is unfortunately nothing I can do about it. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.